Okay, really swift recap of Gould, the nation of morons. So, background of this is whether you can have intelligence from your nature or your nurture. If it's nature, then it should be innate and fixed from birth. If it's nurture, then it's learnt and it's product of your individual experience. Binet argued that intelligence is nurtured. Yerkes said he could put psychology into the realms of science, being all objective and quantifiable, and believed in nature, that it was inherited. The study is a summary of an article written by Gould, who explored Yerkes and exposed a lot of the problems with the research. So, the following issues in Yerkes' work from Gould: problematic nature of the psychometric testing. So generally, how good are psychometric tests? Not great, according to Gould. Problem of theoretical bias in the questions that you produce or in how you actually carry out research, and the problems of political and ethical implications in research. So the results of these things can be used to discriminate against people. Even admission to a country can be stopped based on the problems of these psychometric testing, the implications of those. So the research method, it is a review article because Gould is reviewing Yerkes' NAF study. Psychometric tests. 1.7 million army recruits were used as the participants. Opportunity sample, therefore, in the training camps. So, summary of the procedure. 1917, Yerkes devised the Army mental test. So, 3 parts to it. The written test, which is the Army Alpha A test. It was designed for literate recruits, people who could read. For those who couldn't read, pictorial test, people who were illiterate or who failed the Alpha test, and then the individual spoken exam. If they failed these two, they were supposed to have an individual spoken exam. However, that rarely happened, even though people did fail the above 2 tests. Key findings: previous research has set the standard for adult mental age as 16. Yerkes found that the average mental age of an adult male stood just above the edge of moronity at 13. So that's why the study is called A Nation of Morons, which is the study by Gould is called that, because he's saying, well, that's ridiculous. It was taken by eugenicists, so people who believe in genetic intelligence, that poor Negroes and feeble-minded interbreeding and lowering the overall intelligence of the population. So that's how it was used by, the Donald Trump of the day. Possible to grade European immigrants by their country of origin. The average man of many countries was a moron. Fair people of Northern and Western Europe were the highest. Oh, excellent. Higher than the Slavs of Eastern Europe, yes. And then the darker people of Southern Europe getting, obviously, the furthest away from white and white culture, the less intelligent they got. It's ridiculous. The average Russian had a mental age of 11.3, Italian 11.1, and the Pole 10.74. The black man had an average mental age of 10.41. However, the lighter the skin, the higher the score. So what is interesting about this is how, the familiarity of your culture to another's culture. If you are designing the tests, you're a white man, you design them the questions that a white man would understand. And so what it does tell you is how closely related is a white man's culture to, or one particular white man's culture, to some of these other areas. But to say that makes them less intelligent is ridiculous. Just because you don't know who is at the tennis club this weekend doesn't mean that you're stupid. As a consequence, Yerkes' findings had a large impact on officer screening. So basically, black recruits meant that black recruits were never going to be officers because of this, whereas those who were white were going to get promoted. The most important implication was on the 1924 Immigration Restriction Act. So around the time of 1924, when people are starting to, want to escape Germany and trying to escape a lot of Europe from the Alpine and Mediterranean nations, they were no longer welcome in the USA. Alpine nations like Austria, where the Nazis are about to take over. Huge problems. The persecution of the Jews, which started well before the actual beginning of the Second World War, meant that many Jews tried to escape from their homeland, but no admittance to America. Calculations suggest that as many as 6 million people from southern, central, eastern Europe were denied entry to America. So that, in a statement there, highlights the problem sometimes of trying to be too scientific and saying that you have all the answers in science. So conclusions by Yerkes: nations can be graded by their intelligence. America is a nation of morons. Gould, however, IQ tests are culturally and historically biased. IQ tests do not measure innate intelligence, they measure learned intelligence. IQ testing is often unreliable. IQ tests don't produce valid results, and inappropriately, poorly administered IQ tests can lead to tragic consequences. So have a look back at the 3 aims of Gould. Good. Discard.